homes used to sell for 100, now it's 200, right? But the same principle is still there. You still are then maybe adjusting $75 a foot. So just remember in your CMA, doesn't have to be, you don't have to extract this 75 to a T. There's no way to do it. But just understand it's not the full price per square foot. Just understand that, because you're just adjusting for the differences in square footage. Differences in bathroom count, decks, screen porches, garage utility, condition, and things like that are a separate adjustment. So when you're doing a CMA on your house, think about variables. And in the variables, what are the three main components to your house value? Okay, square footage, location, lot, remodeling, could be design, it could be a lot of different things. Try to focus on those first three and use comparable sales that are most like those three variables. The second thing, we talked about price per square foot. Don't use the total price per square foot, and why? And it makes sense in a vacuum. Bracket your square footage. Okay? So if you have a house that's 3,000 square feet, don't be using comps that are $2,500 a square foot and adjusting $100 per square foot. Excuse the numbers just a little bit. Go back to your data, your CMA, and make sure that you have comps that are a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. It's bracketing. Bracketing is a key thing in appraising. Banks like to see the bracketing, and it makes your results much better or more accurate. Kind of think of it just anything like a car. What's the best way to understand the value of a car? Well, find one that's a little bit nicer, find one that's a little bit, and then you kind of compare the two. It's important. If your subject is here, finding something superior and inferior, and you could probably find out what your property is probably going to sell for. The third is, with respect to bracketing, when you go back and you determine that your list price is $500,000, go back to your market data that you used. Did any of your closed sales sell for more than 500? See, if your anticipated sales price is 400 or 500,000, you don't want to use 3 or 4 comparable sales that all sold for 400 and adjust it all the way up. Nor do you want to use comps that also for 600 and adjust all the way down, because it could make the results less reliable, and the banks don't like to see adjustments all down or all up when it comes to that. So go back and look at your comps, look at what you used. One of the big questions we get, and this is the second, the first was the gross living area adjustments, is we see a lot of adjustments by homeowners on or misunderstanding about updates, improvements, and upgrades to their property. Well, the one example I like to use is a kitchen. A lot of questions will come up. Homeowner puts a brand new kitchen in and they get transferred and they have to move. They spend $70,000 on the kitchen, and they automatically think that that $70,000 should be adjusted in the market approach. Keep in mind that a new kitchen certainly will help, but the comparable sales that you're using in your analysis have a kitchen. So the $70,000 kitchen replaced the kitchen they had. So they replaced something that actually had a value in use. They were using the kitchen and doing everything that's great. They didn't like the kitchen because of one thing or another, but then they took that kitchen out and put a new kitchen in for 75. So they replaced something that already was there. Then the comparable sales that you're using in adjusting for the kitchen have a kitchen in use or a value in use. So you're never going to adjust the full weight of that kitchen because the comps have a kitchen that have a value in use or contribution to the sales price. The only time you would adjust for a full kitchen is if the comp didn't have a kitchen, or that kitchen was at the end of its economic life. We've seen some kitchens and they have some function, cabinets and all that, and they're at their end of their real life. That's probably not a comp you're going to want to use anyway, because if your house has a new kitchen, I suspect there's other things with the house that's been remodeled over time. And so maybe a house that's been remodeled would be a better comp for that. Does everyone understand that value and use kind of, yeah. Just understand a lot of homeowners will say, you know, I just put a new kitchen in, a new bathroom in, I spent 150, you know, Johnny down the road sold their house for 300, mine's 450 now. It just doesn't work that way. So it's there. There's a cost versus value component too. that just because you put a lot of money in your house, that may not be what the typical buyer, they're going to go ahead and pay 100% of those upgrades and those additional features. To make your property stand out, certainly. But just keep in mind that the total cost of a house to construct in a new construction, even in new construction, may not be the open market value of that property. If you're working with a lot of new construction clients, just understand that it's easy to get seduced in this, this upgrade stage. I don't know if they have like a drinking station sometimes with these upgrades when they're adding in all the upgrades to these houses in new construction. They do a great job on selling those features. But understand that you have to also be forward thinking and remembering that the appraisal will be done. Maybe the appraiser is not going to give as much value to every towel bar, every upgraded tile feature that you have. That the appraisal may come in a little bit light, and again, your buyer may have to make up the difference. One of the things that comes up quite often with appraisers or appraisals is that the appraiser is doing the appraisal for the lender. The lender is the client, right? Just because the value comes in low doesn't mean they can't buy the house. It just means they might have to bridge the gap a little bit between what their loan amount was. And I know a lot of lenders have creativity. There's some creativity there. Maybe, there's PMI, maybe there's a second mortgage, maybe there's some way to make up the difference. But at the end of the day, the lender who our client is wants to know what that house is really worth. What is the open, true market value of that property? Prices definitely are being pressured. There's some pressure there from multiple offers without a doubt. And I see some appraisals coming in less than the purchase price. You want to have strong in-writing conversations with your sellers and your buyers ahead of time. Very important. Setting your expectations up front will make it a little bit better in the back end. We have a lot of appraisals. We see a lot of sales contracts, $500,000 to $100,000 more than the list price. And it shouldn't be a surprise to the seller that maybe the value doesn't come in $100,000 more than list price. It's just the bottom line. It's important to have those conversations up front. All right, Thomas, you had a question? What's up?
I have great respect for you because I know you for a very long time. I remember the best. But I'm going to have to ask you probably a very uncomfortable question, and I have another technical question behind it.
Well, we can always talk afterwards if you like.
So here's my question. Sometimes your appraisal is 100% correct and something doesn't meet value, right? It's not for me to argue, but I have seen over my 28 years that sometimes I'm scratching my head that some appraisers use comps that to me just wasn't the right ones. And then, of course, the lender says right away you can actually send the comps that you made the evaluation to the appraisal. I have never been once in 28 years was successful convincing an appraisal to use the comps that I come to property or for them to actually give credit to it.
Great question. Yeah, that's not going to make me uncomfortable.
Okay.
Do you have an uncomfortable question?
No, that was okay.
That's it. We're good. In setting the expectations with the seller, or it could be the buyer too, because buyers, there was a time, like even 2 years ago, share a real quick personal story, when the market started kind of chugging along a little bit, townhome, multiple offer situation, house sold for more than list price, and my value came in at contract price. Right? Happens sometimes, Sometimes homes are priced a little bit on the light side, which I would recommend doing. Every agent should list on the lower side and allow yourself to pick multiple offers, because the multiple offer situation is great information to give the appraiser. Hey, we had 10 offers, 7 above list price. This wasn't the highest. It was the best in relationship with all the terms. That is good information from the appraiser, and it gives you guys, if it doesn't work out, then at least you have other people interested in the property, right? If you overprice the home and then have to trail down, that's the bad direction, right? Rarely do I see a home adjusted once or twice down and then have multiple offers. It's not that it hasn't happened, but less likely. You want to be in the position of demonstrating to the appraiser the market appeal, the market absorption, and the overall value of the property, and the multiple offers does help demonstrate that. I'm kind of sliding here with this answer. There's some things are kind of come to my head, and I want to make sure that I mention them before I forget. When you are, it's hard from a buyer standpoint to defend your high contract price, just to let you know. So if you're the buyer side, it's always the listing agent who's defending the price.
And I'm asking from a listing agent side.
Yeah, so from the listing agent side, what you want to do is, when you get the appointment from CSS that you're going out there, or whatever it's called now, showing time, is that you want to make sure that you send them back an email that says, hey, just want to give you some additional information on this sale. A lot of appraisers don't reach out to listing agents. I do, because I want to get the scoop on it. I think it's really good to have in my report that, hey, there was multiple offers, this wasn't the highest, there was 100 showings, it sold 10 times over. Now, you still have to support the value in writing. The report has to support the value. But that additional information may help the appraiser to reconcile on a higher number within the adjusted range of value. There are very few appraisals, when you put the comps in, right, they're not all going to adjust out at 100,000. It doesn't happen that way. You can't take imperfect comps. And when I say imperfect comps, what I mean is that that is imperfect. You have different listing agents, different houses, different time of sale, different everything. You can't take imperfect sales prices, so to speak, and make all your adjustments, and all of a sudden you have this clean report down at the bottom. So there's always a range, and their range in this case, maybe 95,000 to 115, right? You might have some appraisers that just like right in the middle, right? Well, if you have additional information that shows some strong market appeal to your property, in addition to a pending sale, and we can talk about pending sales in a second, then maybe the appraiser, I say maybe, will feel a little bit more inclined to lean on the higher end of the range of value. But it's your job to be proactive, and hopefully no appraisers are watching me online right now, but you want to be proactive when you have your listing appointment. Tell them, hey, 6 offers, all above list price, whatever. You don't tell them something that will hurt the marketability, scratch that, but for your position, tell us all the positive things that help you position for yourself. And the bottom line is, you're trying to give the appraiser all the information. With respects to comps, you can, I think, just reach out and say, hey, these are the comps I used in my selection. And matter of fact, I did that CMA 2 months ago, and there's some additional new information that might be helpful. One that was active is now closed. One that's active is now pending. Notice that the pending sale sold in the day. Based on my conversation with the listing agent, if you want to give them a call, it's at or above list price. Kind of provide them some information to push them in a direction with respects to their due diligence on the appraisal. And it will prompt them to maybe make the phone calls necessary to find out more information about the pending sale. The pending sale being past due diligence is nice, because that means it's a little bit closer to closing. You can't lean 100% on the adjusted value of a pending because it's not closed. So even if this pending sale was at 125, it doesn't mean I come in at 125 because it's not closed. Lenders require that your opinion of value fall within the closed sale range, the adjusted closed sales. Get the call or get the showing time appointment in your email, send in the information, send them all the updates, the improvements, things that make your house special. And I know, it could be a view, it could be updates, it could be the fact it's got 3.5 bathrooms in a typical 2.5 bathroom neighborhood. Give them the information you think is relevant to the market participants, the people who actually are purchasing and selling the properties and buying. you can suggest a comparable sales, but be careful what you suggest. I've seen in the past that some people suggest a comparable sale that's actually not a comp. There are sales out there, but not every sale is going to help you. Make sure you give them the sales that are good. Just make sure that your front end CMA makes sense. And then that's where the conversation comes in, because I see a lot of CMAs, and quite honestly, a CMA is not a CMA. It's just a printout from your MLS, and that doesn't really do you any good because you don't put any thought into it. You're just throwing in as many sales as you can and coming up with a range, and you're not really reconciling that information at all. Yes?
When y'all appraise a home and you pull comps in specifically out in rural counties, do you use sales that are not in the MLS?
We won't use sales I will use a sale not in the MLS, but as more as a fourth comp than 1 through 3. Comps that are not in the MLS, unless I actually appraised it myself, are less likely to be used because you don't know the background of the sale. It could have been a non-arm's length sale, it could have been a family member sale like that, or you don't know the financial, maybe there was a kickback to the seller, maybe there was extra financing concessions, maybe it was owner financing. There's a lot of reasons why we don't use that, but certainly it may be information that could help with the reconciliation of the value. There is a case where we're doing a co-housing appraisal, and the co-housing appraisal is going to be difficult because there aren't many sales in this, and a lot of the sales are generated through word of mouth, through like a co-housing network group. And so that's a difficult appraisal. So we might use the sale as a fourth to demonstrate the market absorption of that housing. And then of course, the other sales that come up are just the best we can get, that are most similar. That's kind of unique. In a rural area like you're talking about, I would probably use the best available sales that the typical buyer would have considered. So when you use a comparable sale, try to ask yourself, if that home was listed at the same time as my subject, would the typical buyer consider it in their search?
Thank you.
I'm so sorry, but so you answered 98% what I asked, but my last question will be regards to the same subject. What would be my best approach, other than you obviously stated, for me to not necessarily convince an appraisal, but for them to consider my comps, because obviously approach I'm using it might be wrong, but I'm not getting across to say, by the way, I did my homework. The appraisals I use very similar to yours, not on the same level, but very similar concept. But I just haven't been successful getting to it because I'm an agent. I don't know why, but I haven't been able to get through the point of, by the way, can you please look at it, because a lot of times you can send that to me. The working report and price the application, and I use it, change, no matter what.
Well, the reason why I like to reach out to the listing agent if the value appears to be coming in low is just to make sure that I head off and pass. If I missed a comp, let's just say that as a listing agent, you provide me an address that for some reason I just missed. It happens, we're all human. I want to know about that address so I could possibly incorporate it. If it's a home that I did see also in my search, but I don't think it's comparable, what I'll probably do in the report is listing agent provided XYZ. The reason why the appraiser didn't use it was because of this or that. So in the final report, hopefully they show that in the report why that comp wasn't used. I have changed my value. I don't know if every appraiser.
I think you need, you're a professional in a business, whatever, then you want to the best of the best. So it's different than most of them. This is, I was asking that, what is the best approach? Because if it's having been an issue, I get it. If you think it's not worth it, I get it. But I'm just talking about just in general, because I also see appraisals from a different area coming, for example, to Wake Forest or Raleigh, appraising, they have no clue about the value.
But that all comes back. There's a deeper problem. There's a pretty big iceberg underneath this one. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of issues with appraisals could stem from the fact that the lender who's doing the mortgage is ordering appraisals from people who are not qualified. So I don't want to talk about that, but I think it's important that as a buyer's agent, that your buyer is using someone who is more local, okay? To be honest with you. And the reason why is because local lenders are going to use appraisers who are more competent in the area. If you use, and I'm not putting words into any lenders, but if you use an internet lender, for instance, and they don't have access to the appraisers locally, they're going to use a management company. Management companies, I know we love them, they've been around for a little while. I think the main issue with that is that a management company is involved in the process of doing an appraisal, right? Do you think the management company does it for free? No, no, not at all. There were some in the very beginning that wanted 50% of the cost of the appraisal for just expediting, pushing it, right? Okay, so I'll make this quick because I'm going off on a tangent here. But so if you're a management company and your main concern is profitability, are you going to send that appraisal to the person who's going to charge acceptable fee, or someone who's just going to do it for the lowest fee?
That's your point.
So the whole thing is, if you're the listing agent, and if I'm a buyer and I came to you and I give you my free call letter and I got it from John Doe from Quicken Loans, you might want another free call letter. You might want to see that they maybe use a lender. They might not know. Keep in mind, a lot of buyers don't understand lending in general. They look at gosh, now I'm really getting tongue-tied. They look at the commercials. They're persuaded by everything on the internet. They think the best loan and the best way is to go through these companies. Little do they know they possibly be being just held to the end of a cliff. Use the local lenders. Use local appraisers where there's a more open line of communication, and you'll be better off. So, yes.
Can we talk about unpermitted?
Okay. So unpermitted square footage, touchy subject. Most lenders, more specifically, how it's included, how it's reflected in the appraisal.
Right, I mean,
Okay.
so it's like a nail in the coffin when I walk into a $300,000 home and they put $100,000 into the third floor and then it was permanent.
So, one thing is, whenever you're looking at the house as a listing agent, if you go through a doorway and it's got a threshold, metal threshold, and it's still rubber weather stripping around it, that's a red flag, all right? Just let you know, all right? It's likely that was finished after the original construction. So right away, you're going to want to know about the permitting of it. I guess MLS guidelines allow you to include the square footage, but disclose it. Obviously, disclosure is the key thing. You want to know more specifically from the appraisal
From
standpoint?
the appraisal standpoint.
I always suggest, and time is never, you're never going to have enough time, but get it permitted.
Of course.
If you have the time. The appraiser is going to have to demonstrate to the bank. So let's call this 300 square feet over a garage. The appraiser is going to have to demonstrate to the bank that 300 square feet has the same value or similar value than another 300 square feet that's permitted. How the appraiser has to do that is having at least one or two comps where it had unpermitted square footage, either in report. So with one comp, it's difficult to search for those because you really have to read the comments, but maybe you can search by comments. One way is also to create a little bit of a personal file on oddball properties. And it could be the fact that you found a property that's sold and you're like, geez, it's not really applicable to what I'm doing this week, but maybe down the road it will be. We get a lot of questions about oddball appraisals being maybe unique properties and valuing those properties. Well, the best way to value a unique property is to use another unique property. And it may not be identical to the subject, but it may have just a similar unique feature that had market value. A detached accessory unit would be an example. Unpermitted space that was finished is kind of unique in the way. The 300 square feet, the appraiser has to he's going to either include the square footage, explain it's not permitted, and then with the comp number one, hey, comp number one sold for this, it had the same situation, and it showed, this comp shows that its marketability was not adversely affected. Just FYI, what's this market right now, there's not much that's hurting the marketability of properties. I remember, I used to joke about ski slope driveways and having to tether just to get up there, and I'm going, what the hell do you think of buying this house? You know, and we're in that market today. The people are more accepting of properties, backing up the road, backing up the towers, ski slope, because there's nothing else to pick. There's no other alternative to their selections. So we're in this market today where people are more accepting of the properties. My point is that today, at 300, not going to be an issue. I don't know for sure, but you know what I'm saying. It's just a hypothetical. However, if you're the buyer's agent, that 300 square feet, 3 years from now, when the market's softer, it may have an effect. Because there's just more inventory to choose from. There's more of a selection process. So what the buyer's going to do, so 3 years from now, you're the buyer's agent, you sell them the house, you told them the 300 square feet is not a big deal, the appraisal came in, that's fine. They call you back 3 years from now, they have to sell it, they're moving out of town, you told them it wasn't a big issue, and now that 300 square feet is an issue because there's 3 other homes similar in size with the second floor that is permanent above it. Now it could be an issue, because if you have 3 houses to choose from, what if all houses are very similar except the unpermitted versus permitted? What are the buyers going to select, the permitted space or the unpermitted space? Well, if I'm the buyer's agent, I'm going to say permanent space. You have nothing to worry about down the road, right? So today, it may not be an issue, but just remember when you're representing these buyers, remember you're going to be the listing agent when they sell it. So just be careful with that. There is no easy answer to the permanent space. It all comes down to the quality of the space, how it looks, how it conforms, the accessibility of the space. And you want to make sure that in this market, I suspect it wouldn't have a big issue. But down the road, it probably will if there's more competition in the marketplace.
So laying it right out on the table, unpermitted and permitted, is it going to bring the second square footage value in an appraisal regardless of how it was done? Let's say it was done just like the house.
Yeah.
As long as it's the same quality.
Most appraisers aren't going to adjust the difference, but that most is, what is that? 3 out of 10, or I don't know.
Make sure that it's accurate still.
Yeah, it is the one question that's difficult to answer. Well, there's a lot more difficult to answer, but the thing about it is case by case. For instance, give me an example. I can twist this on its head quickly. Let's say that 300 square feet, right, is excess of square footage. So this house is 5,000 square feet, and of the 5,000, 300 is not permitted. And every other house in the neighborhood is really 4,600 square feet. That's different. What if your house is 3,000 square feet and all the houses in the neighborhood are 3,000? Now it's more of an issue, because instead of it being unpermitted 300 square feet of just additional room that no one really needs, that's a non-factor. It wasn't going to really have any value whether it's permanent or not permanent, or less value. You just can't keep on adding square footage on square footage and square footage and square footage in a neighborhood. That's why you see homes sell less difference per price per square foot. You probably go in these neighborhoods, but why is this house sell for 150 square footage and this one sold for 200? Well, I can tell you right away, look at the size of the house, because the smaller homes will always sell higher per square foot. So with the unpermitted or permitted, ask yourself, how does the house conform without it in square footage? You might not even need it. And if the accessibility is on the 3rd floor, and it's got panel walls and drywall seams that are coming apart, like it was really shoddy and outdoor carpet, I mean, it wasn't, that space was dead to begin with, whether it was permanent or not. So each one, if you have it come up, again, call me, I could probably help you in that specific. Because there's just so many little details that could come into play. And if there's a specific one you're working on right now, you can just track me down today. Because I know there's normally more of a story behind the questions, so I can respect that.
Yeah. Any rules that dictate detached, like a two-car detached garage with a little apartment over it or something like that?
Yeah, separating the MLS, it's detached other area. The appraiser's gonna adjust for it separately because you have to go outside to get to it. With respect to adjustments, I'm sorry? Yeah, the square footage adjustment is gonna be lower because the access. I personally like seeing this market, the market's so interesting because I'm starting to see that detached area actually draw better value. And the reason why is because of the COVID. Separate learning space for kids, separate office, at home. If that thing has a half bathroom upstairs above the garage, that's at daddy space. I mean, think about it. Now, what the buyer's willing to pay for it and what the appraiser's willing to adjust for could be two different things. I just see those features in today's COVID environment are taking on today a little bit different value than they might have years ago. And that's what you have to remember. But just keep in mind that the appraiser still has to demonstrate in the report that contribution. Because all of our appraisals, I shouldn't say all, that was a mistake. 10% of our appraisals are reviewed on the back end. They're reviewed right away with an AVM, automated evaluation model. So banks are going to run an AVM against the appraisal. And what they'll do is they'll pull up comps, they think are comps, and say, why do you use these? So all our appraisals are reviewed, whether it's being a field review, a desktop review, or a computer review. And I mean, we're appraisers, at least we're not looking to bring values in low. I'll be honest with you, it takes more time for the value to come in low than it does just to, value comes in and you move on to the next assignment because it adds more time and stress. And I'm not saying we're doing anything unethical, but trust me, there's no scam. We're not trying to bring values in low. Trust me. Yes.
So the promise is the last question. I'm looking for some guidance and advice, not an answer because I don't think you can give me a straight answer. Basements, right? There's a difference between a house that was built in 1975 and somebody finished the basement versus a house that was built in the 1990s that was actually finished versus a house that is newer that actually had the 14 stairs and is part of a house versus just a little dinky door into a basement. How do I separate square footage, not necessarily is equal or not equal, percentage-wise? I'm just looking for some guidance, because obviously there are three different ones, right? So when I'm looking at the mean square footage, and let's say it's 100,000 square foot for a house, basements are worth X. If it's nicely improved, it's worth Y. I'm just looking for some guidance here. For why?
One of the questions that come up a lot is about basement adjustments and why are the basement adjustments so low? I think it really comes into play as far as breaking it down. When you're looking at your subject property and you're looking at the above grade square footage, ask yourself, how does that square footage, how does it conform to the rest of the neighborhood? Is the square footage above grade similar to, larger, or less than? Okay? When we talk about price per square foot of the basement, keep in mind if this is 4,000 square feet above grade, and this is 2,000 square feet in the basement, that the market is going to pay less per square foot of this area, and the reason why is they're already being asked to absorb this, right? We'll say it has a third floor. That's finished. So you can see that the square footage distribution is really over 1, 2, 3, 4 floors. The adjustments for finished basement area, right? This will be separated out, say 1,500 let's just say all 2,000 square feet is finished. You want to make sure you use comparable sales with the similar square footage above and below grade, meaning a house that has finished above grade and basement area. I see a lot of agents who will use 3 comps, 4,000 square feet, and then adjust $100 to $150 a square foot for basement area. We talked about the price per square foot here. We talked about it being a little bit less than the price per square foot, right? So if this is 200, right? So if we're only adjusting 75 for finished areas above grade, why would we be adjusting more for below grade finished area? Just keep in mind that the market will continue to pay more because it's larger, but there's going to be, how many people have tried to sell a 9,000 square foot house and going, oh my God, man, I can barely sell this for what if it was 7,000 square feet. Sometimes too much square footage is too much square footage, and they're not willing to pay the upkeep on it. So you keep in mind that. The adjustment per square foot of this basement area is going to be a lot less than the 75, if that's what you're adjusting upward, right?
Say that again?
If you're adjusting for raw differences in square footage above grade, right? If you have a basement, you can gain more land, kitchens, for the most part, unless it has an at-home kitchen down there. But the bottom line is, the appraiser is only going to adjust down here maybe $50 to $60 a foot for that finished area. The best way to determine the adjustment is to use other comps with the finished basement. That's how you really determine that. So, go ahead.
Do you care when you make an adjustment for a basement, whether it is an English basement, it's poured concrete, block foundation, does it make any difference at all?
Typically, when I'm selecting comps, they're going to be probably from the same builder, so it's going to have a similar foundation or similar components, or whether it's concrete or
Because I see there are some areas ITV, right?
Yeah.
And you have $1 million house, then you see similar houses were built 25 years ago with the block foundation. Happened in my neighborhood, that there is a $1.6 million house. Then another builder came in, built the same house for 1.2, but used blocks, and to me look like that. Right?
It's going to be hard to do a market extraction on that. I try to use similar age built sales. And when you use similar age, then hopefully the components at that time, the sticks and stones that built the house, are similar in materials. So
You may have covered this, but I'm finding it hard to get within a space like 6 months. How far back can you go?
great question. All right, and this brings up another thing I want to talk about is comparable selection, because we're having a hard time finding comps. We're wanting to stick to 9 months, or like 90 days, but unfortunately that 90 days is a comp that's over here. So try to use several filters. Okay. So here's the subject house, and this is the timeline here. Right, and this is back, say, 24 months. Do I recommend using 24 months ago? No. My thing is this. So you have a house. We're just the subject, the details are not important, but guess what? In the last, I'm going to put, this is subdivision A, B, and C. In your CMA, time of sale is very important. Right? But one of the things that we're struggling with is that recent sale is not in our subdivision. Okay? Search for your subject property, look at the most recent sales. Coincidentally, we found one in subdivision A that sold for $300,000. Okay? And when we think about it, okay, well, when this one sold, if my house was active, a similar buyer probably would have looked at it, right? Okay. Let's say that in your heart, you believe that this neighborhood is superior to your neighborhood. One way to figure out how superior or inferior is to go back in time. So this subdivision A, the last time a house similar in size to yours sold was down here, and it sold for $200,000. Okay? Search this neighborhood here and find another similar sale and see what it sold for. Let's say it sold for, did I say superior or inferior?
Superior.
Okay, sold for $250. Right? So we're talking about a $50,000 adjustment. Your house is worth $250. So use market extraction and time to help you. And it's not a perfect science. I'm not here to tell you it is. It's so imperfect, but at least gives you something. You know, even if it's to articulate to the seller, listen, baby girl, the last time a house sold in here, you know, it sold for 200, and in this neighborhood here, it sold for 250. If this one just sold for 300, the thought is at least, it's not 350. Let's put it that way. You're not trying to argue so much about this 50. It's sometimes get them off the ledge that they all of a sudden now think that their house is this neighborhood. And when we do a CMA, if you can, try to bracket the location. So we said this was superior. Let's say this was inferior. This comp sold for 250, right? Recently, last 90 days. Back then, wouldn't this be 150? So you try to bracket through historical sales. If you can find 90 days, you find recent comps, don't use, I've seen so many agents, so many market people listing houses that will do their search, say their house is this, cherry pick 3 comps from the best neighborhoods in town and say they're not going to sell for that number. And then, of course, they're surprised that the appraiser comes in low because the appraiser themselves identified these houses are much higher in value. So use the match pair analysis to help you defend your position on pricing, or at least articulate to your seller that it probably won't sell for that, or appraise for that. Nowadays, everything's selling for everything, but not appraised for that. So that's something there. It's called a match pair and a time, right? You can use this for a lot of things. Let's say your house was, you know, when you talk about your house, what if your house was on the larger side? Let's say your house was 6,000 square feet in a neighborhood that only has 4,000 square feet. Sometimes I'll look back at historically and go back and see when the subject sold last for 6,000. It had 6,000 square feet. You want to know, well, you know, how does the market react to a house this big in this neighborhood? It's a little bit bigger for the neighborhood. What you can also do is go back to see when it sold last or the previous other times. How did that house sell compared to the sales at that time? And when it was listed 3 years ago, you know, did it take a long time to sell for the market to finally come around and say, you know what, I will pay X amount for this, even though it is so much larger than peers. Peers are other homes in the same neighborhood. Most people don't want to be the largest house in the neighborhood, so it may take a little longer to sell at that price you want. But back in, you know, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and obviously you have to use normal market time, or periods, should I say, you're going to want to know so you can prepare the seller that when they bought it, it took 200 days to sell. And the previous time, it took a year to sell. And it sold for a lot less. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case in today in COVID time, but 6 months from now or a year from now, the market could change. Well, my point is always use the MLS to your advantage to search historically. I see a lot of agents and market participants, they don't use the MLS really to their full advantage when it comes to searching historically the market reactions. Let's say you have some great comps in your neighborhood, in this neighborhood, but they closed 6 months ago, right? Then the question you're going to have is, you know, how do these comps help me today? I always suggest that you look at your active listings, which there are none, but look at your pending sales. And your pending sales could be helpful. Why are the pending sales helpful today on a house that you might not list for a week? Well, that pending sale may close. So look at the scheduled close date. Because the pending sales will likely be used, right, in the comp. So there's always a delay of at least 30 days, I would think, right? So if you have a pending sale that's closing in 2 weeks, and you're listing a week, likely this closing will be the first comp anyone looks at. Not closed today, but remember, anticipate it will be. Call to the buyer's agent or listing agent to get some better understanding of where they are on that contract. Past due diligence, are they gonna close, the appraisal coming low? Those kind of things could help in helping you price your house based on that pending sale, because that's gonna be a key sale. My appraisal uses pending sales when appropriate, because that's the best way to kind of capture that time.
You plug in the list price?
I'll ask the agent. So what I'll do is I'll send them an email, or I'll call them and I say, hey, I'm doing an appraisal in the immediate area. I know you can only tell me what you want to tell me, but your information could help me with the current report. I'll keep it confidential. Are you at or above? And typically they'll say, yeah, we're on a contract for, 325, it's listed for 200, whatever the case might be. You're okay sharing the information. And that's why I try to be as, not to be self-serving, why I try to be as active in the marketplace as possible, because they can trust you if they recognize your name. And using pending sales will also make your reports a little bit more accurate, but more importantly, more defensible. Defense is so key. From the appraiser's perspective, they don't want to be sued down the road.
Tim, are you giving a lot of value to like lumber costs and building costs are going up?
Oh my
so much?
gosh.
That was my question, because I don't know.
The time adjustments is something, I sent an email to a lender this morning. I was real proactive, I should have done a few weeks ago. But I was trying to get some feedback from their underwriting department about time adjustments. There's like, underwriters are kind of like behind the curtain. You think appraisers are behind the curtain. I mean, the bank and the secondary market and underwriters are also, they're trying to keep disconnected. Time adjustments, you might ask, I'm going to ask the question for you because I know it was going to come out soon, is are you applying time adjustments? How do you apply time adjustments? What are you doing about that? Time adjustments for new construction. New construction is very unique because most of the time you close sales when under contract, not last week, right? 6 months ago, 8 months ago, even 12 months ago sometimes. And the change of lumber, the lumber package that builder purchased 12 months ago, is going to be different today. The key with those appraisals, without a doubt, you have to have pending sales. So if you're an on-site agent, I work with your company, I'm an on-site agent at this particular neighborhood, you've got to put all your pending sales in the MLS. Because those MLS pending sales will help demonstrate that time of changing lumber. Change of lumber doesn't make you just because there's a change in lumber doesn't mean the appraiser is going to add more for time. They have to, the time adjustment has to be supported by the market appreciating, or in this case, purchasing the houses at a higher price because of the change in lumber. So you have to have the pending sales support that adjustment through 1, 2, 3.
I'm so sorry, you guys will think.
All right, you're welcome to see it. I don't do as much new construction as I'd like, this is slam dunk stuff. But if I am doing new construction in today's environment, you're going to want to know that the appraiser needs to know the pending date. I've had someone say the other day, lumber prices went up, and the funny thing is that their house was complete for a year. I'm like, okay, I mean, if you're going to sell, or if you're trying to convince the appraiser things, just make sure that you use information that's accurate and good. The lumber prices today don't affect the house you built a year ago. Okay?
Do you also see, like right now, put your homes up last weekend, both went 30 over list price, right? And buyers.
New construction?
No, resale. So buyers agents are trying to put in these addendums to say, if the home doesn't appraise, we'll pay up to 20,000, 30,000, whatever it is, right? But to me, it sets a negative expectation for the appraiser. Are you seeing, does that help or hurt? Or
I will look, I'm asking my team to definitely look at those addendums for sure. And yes, it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
If you have it in the contract, I'm going to ask about it. Because I do see appraisal addendum, and then they don't send it to me, of course. Oh, I asked for it.
Right.
I'm sorry.
But there's no point to have them, I mean, from a transactional standpoint.
Yeah, you know, like,
all that, but
The
Are you-
terms of the,
Are you less likely to appraise a house that has that $30,000?
that's off record, man.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be asking this question. That's an uncomfortable question.
So as agents, we need to try to get those addendums removed. you would
What
say.
Thomas had was comfortable, that's.
No.
I,
Tell us.
no, yeah, what I say here does not leave this room. It's like Vegas, right? Whatever. The appraiser's gonna do the best job they can, just split value, so they don't get, get reported. And that all back end, just has to work out itself, to be honest with you. I definitely don't envy what you guys are going through right now, there's no doubt about it. Buyers are losing houses out, people moving in from New York and California, and their wallets are a little different than our wallets when it comes to real estate. And they have a different mindset when it comes to purchasing. I don't know how many agents I've talked to that said that, like in Durham, for instance, Durham is the new Mecca, my God. I don't know, I do a lot of work in Durham, holy smokes, that place is hot. But you have a lot of purchase money coming in that just says, hey, I'll pay 50 or 100 more. How do you say no to that? You kidding me? You don't, you don't. But a lot of local buyers are losing out. I'm not gonna discourage, buyers' weight, but at the end of the day, buyers with 3% not gonna make it, I'm sorry.
Does that like factor into the appraisal?
Oh, no. It explains why a value will come in low.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, right? It may explain, hey, the reason why you, as a listing agent, you listed it for 400, how you were hoping on paper it would be 380, right? And then it sells for 475. I had a situation not too long ago, and then when I asked for the CMA, they sent me a relocation appraisal. Of course, they don't send the most important part, which is what they suggested to list the house at. But you can't go outside your neighborhood 4 or 5 comps when you have all the data right there in front of you. I mean, you can't bunny hop or frog leap over the sales inside the neighborhood. They're literally the same builders, same square footage, just closed, and go outside. Just to placate, the seller or anyone else. You can't do that. That is a recipe for disaster. How is the appraiser going to justify to the court that, oh, these comps that just closed last week, they're not good comps. And then pending sell, oh, that's just pending, right? But these comps 3 miles away, they're not even comparable to our home, or more similar and more representative of our property value. Can't do that. It's a little bit of exaggeration, but that's what happens. So it's hard to, for buyer's agents, my gosh, thank God you guys have computers, you don't have to break this out all the time. Holy cow, offers you guys probably making on some of these houses, it's terrible. We need more inventory. And if you have any people that are trying to move down, now's the time. The market's no way the market's gonna get any better now. This is a passing ship, right? If you're high end, older home, 30 years old, 1.3 an acre lot, and you don't even like to mow the yard, man, now's the time to downsize and go on a trip around the world. Get it sold. Yeah.
Tim, somebody approaching this from our side of the street, is there a CMA program or ABM program that you like, that you would recommend, or are they all?
No, I just kind of to be honest with you, I use my appraisal form. So what I can do is send it to you. You don't need, I see a lot of appraisers and a lot of agents nickel dime these little adjustments. Stop. Don't adjust for a little fence and a patio 8x10 versus 12x12. Come on. Stick to the main variables. All right, that's going to be the square footage, obviously the distribution, the condition, and the age, and the update, and stuff like that. And make sure your analysis has the pending sales that are available in the marketplace. The pending sales, it's interesting, we talk about distance of comps. If there's less inventory, or buyers have a wider radius or smaller radius?
Wider.
Yeah, because they have to look a little bit more to be satisfied by the market, what's available, right? So you can go a little bit further and find those comps that are in 90 days. Because the market hasn't produced enough sales for us to use now, and that's primarily because of the inventory issue. So, but don't cherry pick a comp and not adjust for the difference in neighborhood.
Do you ever go ahead and look at withdrawn, terminated, or,
No. The lady behind you had a question.
sorry?
No, you're fine. How do you treat houses that are being built out in an established neighborhood? Like an investor comes in and builds out, in a lot, and it's already like 10, 15-year-old neighborhood. How is it viewed, like, in appraisal?
If I'm doing an appraisal on a new construction property on an infill neighborhood, it might be a good comp, if it actually was built and sold in the MLS. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, I'm saying like if it's first time being sold and there's nothing new in the area, it's a lot, an investor came, built it.
Are you saying that this new house is the subject property that has to be
Subject
appraised?
property,
Yeah.
yes.
I might use, depending on the difference in age, the chronological age, I will look at possibly using a house inside the neighborhood, even though it might be 10 years old. Because that at least represents, it checks the box for site value location, right? Check that box. And then I might have to use another infill house somewhere else, or have to go outside the neighborhood. I'm not a big fan with using doing a subject property infill house and going to some production neighborhood. It's a completely different buyer. And the reason why is it just is. This established neighborhood is established why? You can answer that real quick. Well, it's probably closer to town, right? Right. So as soon as you go outside and use something, then you're further away from town. So you have to use a time or a location adjustment or a site value adjustment. So that investor who built that house pay for that lot $150,000, right? So if you use that other new construction over XYZ area, look to see what that builder paid for the lot. Maybe it was 80, and that might help you support your adjustment for location or land site value. Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Thank you for being, yeah, sure. There's too many moving parts. I have agents call me all the time, and they'll give me like just a little piece of a nugget. And sometimes it's, what do you think this will sell for? And they won't include the address. And so each thing, so what I would love for you to do is, let's talk over the next week more specifically about individual houses you have listed. And from that, more detailed analysis will come from it. Because there's not an easy answer to really any of the questions with respect to generalization. I'm trying to just give you some components, some things, kind of guidelines to help you. But I don't mind at all. I'll leave my cards here. If you have something like that and you're working on it right now, just give me a call. We can talk for a couple minutes on it. And that's the best way I can help you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, to hire you or your firm to help us out with a market price, okay? I mean, I hate calling you or our preferred attorney or anybody, but if we have something that we just can't.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I try to be a consultant to the realtors out
Yeah,
there.
I know you do, because you helped me last week.
Oh, was it you?
What will?
Oh, there we go. See,
Yeah.
another thing, bro. No, man, I know that. It's not like I was following you on Facebook or something.
One ball guy.
Hey, we're in the club.
So,
Yeah, stay away from dermatologists.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
I'm trying to find out you on the spot, but if I call you and say, hey, here's the address, here are my comps, give me a price. What are you gonna charge me for that? I mean,
I'll be honest with you, I'm not gonna give you a price. I'm gonna tell you, hey, listen, this is probably what will be supportable given the current market data. What you have to realize is that could change in a day or a week. So everyone should know that this, in the old days where you could probably stick on a number for 6 months, ain't happening now. 6 hours.
gotcha.
So just be careful, you're welcome. I try to consider myself a consultant to the realtors that I like to work with, and because I'm here today, and you're in that club. I like it. So yes, you can call me. I don't charge really anything. If it's just a quick little conversation, we'll do that. If you need me to go out and see the property, I suggest if you ask me to measure it and I'm more intimate with the house, I can see it. I like helping people even more, and we're doing photography, aerial drones.
Carry cash in the pocket.
I'm liking them even more. I'm in love with you. No, so I'm just kidding, but, I want to help people, but at the end, it opens up the lines of communication, so, the other day, I was calling a realtor who I've known for years, and I kind of forgot, sometimes you can't take the phone, and I said, it's the same old, I'm doing an appraisal, I need your help. And she's like, Taylor, I've known you for years, it's 3:35. I'm like, oh, see if I can. And you just kind of forget, you kind of go through your emotions. So I look at establishing those relationships, open lines of communication, so I do my job better. Right? Isn't that what it's about? So, and then when you're doing business with people that respect you and you respect them, it helps. That you don't get into the fiery pit of hell when it comes to unethical stuff. Just have to be careful.
Hey, can you explain some of the differences that a VA or FHA appraiser might see differently than a conventional appraisal?
It runs the gamut, but you're looking for safety issues, it's gotta be inhabitable. I'm an FHA appraiser, I'm not a VA appraiser. I see in the marketplace that people are accepting conventional loans, and it's only more or less because of the interest rate, I think, maybe the same, I don't know. Are the conventional appraisals more flexible from an inspection standpoint? Yeah, but the appraiser should put down any repairs that need to be done in the report, so it will comply with FHA guidelines. So the appraiser is going to appraise the property. Market value is market value is market value. It shouldn't change if your client's paying in Bitcoin, you're paying FHA or VA or conventional. It should not matter. The value is the value.
I think where it values is sell looking at the FHA, that's the same price as the conventional with 20,000.
Oh, it's no brainer. Yeah, you're going to accept the conventional one. It seems like it's going to be the fastest path to closing. And if the appraisal comes in short, they're going to have more to come out of pocket. And they go to 85%, 90%, 95%.
Yeah, I've heard that it won't get appraised for FHA if there's paint chipping or a piece of rotted trim wood around the window, or like how picky are they to not?
It runs just like every agent out there has a different
appraisers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've run across agents who don't know what they're doing and agents who've been doing it for a long time. There's going to be a kind of wide range of whoever puts their eyes on it. I recommend if I am selling the house, remedy those issues before you put the house on the market. And that way you're opening the house to the larger number of potential buyers that have interest, or they're not assuming that there'd be something else wrong. So, didn't answer your question, but fix those items before you put the house on the market. Well, the bottom line is, when it comes up, and then, you're on vacation, seller's on vacation, the handyman's not, it's tied up, can't get it done, just get it done before and you're done.
Is it true that VA appraisers are doing drive-bys still?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think everyone takes the path of least resistance. So if they're allowed to do drive-bys, they're probably going to do drive-bys, right? No.
I think you do defend your appraisal very well, to your point.
I mean, you're going to try to look at photographs, aerials, interior photographs, things like that, get better idea of the house. I don't know. I'm not a big fan on drive-bys because I think it, as an appraiser, might open you up to some liability. And so I'd rather see the house myself. That's just my personal experience, my personal opinion. But we're kind of wrapping up, I think, on time, and I don't want to take too much of your all time. Is there any one last question or anything like that? Or?
I do have a question. If I offer a rebuttal, does it get back to you as the appraiser?
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, it's so the value comes in low. Hopefully you're not asking because I talked to them, no, but maybe I did. The bottom line is reconsideration of value. That's what it's called. Every lender has a different way of doing it, but at the end of the day, it's called a reconsideration of value. You present the comps that you think the appraiser could have used, or should have used, or would like to use, and send it. Make sure that the reconsideration of value has some meat to it, because that's what the lender's looking for. If you send them something that's more subjective and opinion-based, so to speak, the lender may not even send it to us.
See, I offered opinion too, so I said, if you don't do this, and if you add this, they didn't like it. Because I guess I was telling how I wanted it.
No, I mean, it's
Didn't
like,
like it.
yeah, well, a lot of times the lenders will pass it on if it's comparable sale that wasn't used in the report that most likely could have been considered. That's why I always try to reach out to the listing agent about those comps. Hey, what comps are you using in your analysis? Because A, one, I could have missed it and it should be in the report without it, and you don't want mud on your face as an appraiser. Or second is then I can understand more their position on comps, and then if there are 2 or 3 comps, then I can explain why they're not used. And that kind of ends that reconsideration, because we don't want to have to go back to an appraisal. If we can address these comps ahead of time, we're going to, as an appraiser. And I don't want to see a comp, I don't want a lender sending me a comp that, was next door, just closed, and I missed it. Now that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I like to get shot. I hope that helps.
I have I don't know if this is considered uncomfortable or not, but this is a recent situation. If an appraiser gets assigned that has a reputation with the listing agent for never appraising at list price, how can you, I mean, we attempted to ask the lender, and this is the deal, can you get somebody else?
You mean, list price or contract price?
List price, even at list price.
Oh.
Apparently the listing agent had a 10-year history and said,
All the appraisals came in low or whatever, so it's.
Yeah. and so we're heading for disaster here, so, I mean,
Small town.
yeah, what can you do in that case? We did attempt to go to the lender and say, this is a concern. And
Every
then-
lender should have more than one person on the list, because how do you have a rotation with one person?
Right,
And how can you have how can you offer a unbiased approach to value if you gotta have more people on the list, so to speak. So you can operate in a rotation, so one person's not doing all that lender's business. That doesn't help, no, but, the lender certainly can reassign the appraisal.
they refused in this case because they said that the appraiser had good performance ratings and then, et cetera, and then.
This is the national
It's a
management
credit
company,
union.
credit union. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We were able to, I mean, I just remember future, we were able to get around it just by working the system because the appraiser canceled the appointment and then tried to reschedule last minute and the sellers turned it down and we ended up getting a different appraiser, but that could have not worked out so well.
You answered your own question. You know what that is? Just don't let the guy in.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Bad time.
I know.
Bad time. Didn't get in. I didn't mean to turn it into a
Yeah.
joke, but,
Sorry.
but, yeah. Is that local credit union, state employees, small town?
It is called local government credit union, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's gonna be, as you know, unless you had firsthand experience, it could be embellished a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying.
Of course, yeah, I took that into consideration.
Yeah, so, we all know that there's probably, 2 sides to the story, as we've seen many times. You're not always given all the information, and if there's a word left out, really makes a difference.
Mhm.
So, all right, well, I hope you guys have fun. Oh, here's some cards. I'll just leave them up front.